Hello, Art Arbor community. Welcome back to Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast, episode 16. I am your host and moderator, Jake Vanderhayden, joined by my co-founder and co-host, Andrew Arden Witter, and very honored to have a very special guest. As always, we love our guests on the pod. Jill Payne is joining us today, and super excited to have this pod as we're going to go outside the realm of talking to artists specifically about the things that they're working on a little bit and shift into what we've introed in our last couple of episodes about our Modern Artist Optimization Index, which is a full audit of everything that is going on in the career of an artist. So today we're going to be talking on the topic of personal development, but I will open up the floor for a little intro from Jill.
Well, good morning. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here and to support all of you. Just big fans of the podcast and all of you personally. So I'll start with a few kind of specific stories that I think will resonate with those of you who are looking for jobs, thinking about your careers, etc. I'll begin with my education. I began with a Bachelor's of Arts degree in fashion merchandising. From a small private liberal arts school many, many years ago. I worked in the industry for a little bit. I became a little bit bored with what I was doing, was not able to move necessarily, didn't have that mobility. So I went back to graduate school. And there I was able to study similar topics, focused a lot on computer design for apparel, textile science. With that, ended up landing a job in teaching. So for almost 30 years now, I've been in higher education, teaching at a few different schools, but have really, really enjoyed the support that I've received, the amount of work that I've done, and I'm really quite proud of my career. So I've been very happy with that. At Northwood University, where I was for about 16 years, I had some excellent opportunities to really grow and develop as an individual and as a professional in my industry. And to the point where my alma mater came to me in about 2014, and they asked me to be a keynote speaker at an event that they had. And so I went down to my alma mater, Adrian College, and I spoke in front of a variety of people, board trustee members, board members, faculty, parents, students, staff, administrators, etc. So about 6 weeks later after that presentation, I was asked to lunch by the Adrian College president, and he offered me a job. So that was really an excellent break for me. I'll never forget it. I was honored. I was humbled to really have been recruited by this president to come down and start up a new fashion merchandising program. So I did that. And as I was sitting in this classroom, talking with my students, engaging with them in the hallway or across my desk, whatever it was, over the last few years that I taught, I realized these students are they're changing. I had been in the classroom for so long at that point. I noticed a marked change in my students, how they would handle conflict, how they would listen, how they would communicate. And I really felt disconnected from my students. So I really felt that becoming a life coach would really be the way for me to know, understand, develop empathy, really put myself in my shoes of my students. So I became a life coach, did a lot of study beforehand, read Jay Shetty's Think Like a Monk book that changed my life, and ended up doing the life coaching through Jay Shetty. So it was really this certification that I think really opened my eyes to what young people are going through today in their lives, in their professional careers, just really kind of all around, and also helped me to not only know and understand, but communicate with them better. So with that being said, in 20 had some other kind of major life changes. So about 3 years ago, I ended up moving to Chicago. I ended up getting married, and with that left my career of almost 30 years in higher education. So that was a major, major transition for me, and again, helped with a lot of those empathy skills as well for people who are going through that job search, who are older, who are really kind of rethinking their purpose and rethinking success. So some other things I really love, travel. I love to meditate, I garden, I get outside as much as I possibly can, just to really kind of help ground myself. As Andrew knows, I'm a foodie. I cook and bake. I think cooking and baking is my love language. And in my artistic endeavor, I really love photography, and I'm a little bit of a purist because I rarely ever change anything, rarely ever edit anything. Maybe I'll crop if nothing more, but I really love taking pictures close up of little things like flowers for the most part, fungi. I love broad sunsets. I take several pictures of a view that I have in South Carolina, and over the Blue Ridge Mountains. I often visit there and are able to really engage and I think really take in nature in a different way. So,
wow, that's really sweet to see. So we might as well just get this out there now. And just start fresh with everyone. Jill's my mom, everybody. Okay, just to be clear, that Jill is my mom, best mom ever, right? MVP, most valuable. Well, MVM, most valuable mom. Yeah, MVM. And she, I seen your art, some of your photography journey. I didn't really think about it until really this moment and having this conversation. How much you've taken a lot of photos over the years, and capturing the artwork of nature is, well, I mean, that's a pretty magical thing to do. You're interacting with nature, and arguably some of the most perfect art is, well, in the arbor of nature.
Thank you. I appreciate that support. And I have found that over the years, I have declined taking classes to kind of refine that skill and that artistic endeavor. I just really want to make it my own, have it be something that I simply enjoy and can engage in without any sort of ill-conceived standard or level. I just take photos, I enjoy them, I may make books out of them, I occasionally share them, but it really is an endeavor that just really feeds my soul. It helps me to take a look at nature in a different way, as I mentioned, but also really have a greater appreciation for what I see, how I see it. I often will see, I'm a visual learner, so I might close my eyes and see that picture. I might walk up to something and see that photo before I actually take it. That's when I get out my phone and realize I've got to take that picture. So it's really been an interesting study for me to develop my eye for photography.
Man, it makes me think, have you thought having the camera more readily available to you, or do you enjoy the mobile phone content capture? I mean,
yeah, I think I have a regular, beautiful Canon camera that I have used in the past, and it takes phenomenal pictures, and I enjoy that. But there's something about kind of the impromptu, when I go for walks, seeing what I can find, element of the photography that I do that I just really enjoy and appreciate.
Wow. Jake, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's dial back into your intro. I really think it's interesting as a life coach that you have that perspective of that major change that you made in your career. And when you work with people, that you're able to offer that experience to them, almost that empathy along the way that, hey, I know what you're going through. This is a major shift. And also seeing different perspectives, like having a long career working with young people, and then also having that perspective of being well into your career and making that change. You really can connect with different, demographics and age levels and things like that. So just wanted to get a little bit more into, the mindset of growth and change and how you approach that. What inspired you, I guess?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I think it really is my students and wanting to know and understand the changes they personally go through and have been going through. Because as I said, I walked into my classroom probably, I would say, a good 10 years ago, and wondered what's going on. These students have changed almost overnight. Well, studies are showing right as soon as social media was introduced, and a variety of components having to do with social media, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute, but that really was the kicking point for me. I said, I've got to know more about what students are doing, where they're coming from, what they're saying in their minds, what is going on, why are they not able to make decisions. So I think that really prompted me to know more, relate to my students better. I always had the ability with Andrew to say, hey, what's going on in your world? It was my eye into, millennials, my eye into Gen Zs through my son, which was fantastic. But there was still an element that I think I was missing. And once we graduated, moved out of the house, and we just didn't have that daily connection or that ongoing connection necessarily. So I could really get a good insight into what he was going through. What are people like him, his age, experiencing in college? I really think it helped to make do my job better. In fact, I did a training with my colleagues about life coaching. I ended up doing a class about life coaching. And in fact, we can offer a class as a pilot. So I thought, okay, I'll offer one class, one semester. I will dial it back, cap it at 10 kids, and we're just going to try this. And I'll never forget that I offered this course, and seniors at midnight on a Sunday can sign up for the class. So I get in the next day on a Monday, and I had 18 emails. Professor, can you write me into this class? And wow. I thought, what's going on? And I read all of these emails. One student said, I tried to sign into your class at 12:15 and it was closed already. So I opened up the class to 3 more sections. It was 1 hour a week. It's all it was, on a Wednesday at noon. That's all that it was. Mm-hmm. And it was 50 minutes. I offered three sections. I had 18 kids in each section, and I turned people away. So with that, I knew there was a need, and I think it was quite a successful course. And I approached it a little bit different way too. When a professor goes into the syllabus and you're prepared and you're ready to go and you know what you're going to talk about and say, I did not do that. I had the skeleton of a syllabus, and the very first day I asked students, what do you want to know? What do you want to know? This is your class. How can I help you? And their needs really drove the content of the course. And I think it was fantastic. I would love to. I only ended up doing it for a year because I did it for a semester because I moved away after that. And I really wish I would have kind of stayed with it a little more in a different way, but I really haven't had much of a chance to be in a classroom situation with the life coaching now that I've moved, and a lot of kind of things up in the air with jobs and those kinds of things. So I think it's going to be time for me to echo back to that. We'll see. So one thing that I did want to mention too, before we kind of go any further, I just want to share with you a little bit too about what a life coach does and doesn't do. And I think this is important for everybody, all of your listeners to know. But obviously I'm not a doctor, right? I would never diagnose anything. Certainly as an individual, I just have a simple, plain certification from Jay Shetty. So in terms of kind of some things that we do, we ask questions. So what do we do? We help our clients for them to understand that they have answers right inside of them. We help to develop tools and techniques. We empower our clients to solve problems. We empower them to clear their minds, break habits. This is a big one, breaking habits, developing new, healthier habits. As a life coach too, it will help motivate through accountability, expertise, communication, those kinds of things. We really meet those clients where they are. So we really aren't kind of supposed to give advice, although I'm going to break that little rule today. So to share that with you.
Exclusive.
Exclusive right here. You got it. So yeah. So today I really would like to focus on, as Jake mentioned, really personal development, career development, how those two may enmesh, and really from a life coaching perspective. So so I'm excited.
Perfect.
But, and I've watched so many of your podcasts, and I think you were just spot on in terms of your topics, your subjects. Like you, right? We're very, very aware of the importance of this topic of personal development, career development, etc. No shortage of research that's going on with regard to the job market today. So I want to talk a little bit about that job market, kind of set that up as a context to where we are going with our job search. Because you're right, Jake, when I moved to Chicago, thinking I would just plug into another institution right away, I found it extremely difficult to look for a job, extremely difficult to go through that process of applying, filling out it. Even as a professor, you've got to fill out applications, and right, it's a daunting task. So, and I knew what I wanted to do, right? I was in a position that I had a little bit kind of control of the situation, but when somebody's young, it's really a whole different ballgame. So that's really kind of my, I think, perspective on that as well. So, but nonetheless, right, even just this week, we've had companies laying off, announcing large layoffs or major organizations, right? There's a lot of instability going on right now with our geopolitics, higher prices for kind of everyday expenditures. Then, of course, we throw in that added AI. And the way I look at AI in terms of kind of general overall scope of AI, I think about this as a snowball that's rolling down a hill, right? It kind of starts out a little bit slowly, but it will speed up. It gets a little bit out of control. The snowball gets a little bit bigger, but really don't know how big the snowball is going to get. We don't know how fast it's going to go. We don't know how that snowball is going to change in size, right? There's so many variables that we have to think about when it comes to AI. But the point is, right, it is moving. That snowball is moving, and nothing is standing in its way. So one of the other kind of tie-ups that we find with AI is that it's difficult to know how AI is going to be used. What is it going to do? Previously, we have all kinds of models we've been able to develop and really create a kind of vibrant and robust prediction modeling system in business and in many other aspects of our world. We just simply do not know where AI is going right now because it's really at its infancy stage. But again, and being able to use it full scale, companies don't know how to use it full scale. They may not have the competencies in their team members to be able to know and understand how to use those competencies fully in AI. So we've got this kind of unknown going on with AI and a little bit of instability in our world that we feel, and we know it's a visceral feeling that we have in all of this. And then we as individuals, right, have a mindset that reaches externally for answers, right? We reach externally for others to fulfill us, outside entities, right? We might kind of joke that complete us, if you will, when really, as if we ourselves are incomplete in some way, shape, or form, all on our own. We know that social media, right, how we are perceived, our likes, all of those kinds of social media engagements, right, creates a feedback loop that really links our self-worth directly with external validation. And we know that that is the case. We've got enough long-term data to be able to say that in a very concrete, intellectual way. So we know that there are lots of extraneous variables going on around us as we think about personal growth, personal development, job searches, etc. So what might kind of this mean to us personally, right? We know in that job search, studies also show that job searches affect us negatively when it comes to our mental health. So we know that there are a lot of difficulties out there. Boy, if you find it difficult to have those tools, to have those abilities to navigate that job search, it makes it even more difficult. Mm-hmm. We take things into account like what are new job searchers kind of looking for, right? Looking for obviously good pay. One of their pet peeves is being offered a job that they don't, is in being paid not enough according to what they think they deserve. That's a difficult one to navigate, right? Things like job benefits, right? Healthcare is an extremely important. Flexible scheduling are extremely important. These are priorities that job seekers are looking for right now. And one of the other things that we find is that companies and employers are kind of cutting back on some of those benefits in some instances. Even things like healthcare, when they do have it, they're asking for more out-of-pocket costs for those employees. So overall, when you kind of take a look at this, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and really have a really awful view of the job search environment. I don't mean to do that, but I think it's really important, right, that we know kind of what the world that we live in and the kind of pool we're jumping into, right? So my empathy scale really rises, right, for all of this,
Sure.
knowing what's going on, having had those experiences that I've had, and really are kind of in uncharted territory when it comes to those that AI piece. So as I said, right, change is the kind of number one overall arching, I think, piece that I get out of all of this research and studies. So when we talk about job searches, when you talk about personal growth, I think it's really beneficial for us to think about navigating a change management. How do we navigate that change? How do we mitigate as much of those ill effects or negative effects of change in our lives kind of as best we can?
Oh yeah, a lot to digest so far, but I'd like to really touch on a couple things that you brought up that we consistently bring up on the podcast here. One is definitely about AI, artificial intelligence impact on everyone in society, but through our lens specifically on how it's affecting artists, and it's affecting their ability to do what they do because they're seemingly being replaced in some instances by AI itself, or even artists being replaced by a replication of themselves. Heard a lot of musicians say like, oh, this AI version of myself sounds better than me. Like they took everything I did, recreated it, and produced something amazing based on a prompt. And like I have heard in interviews and podcasts and things, artists say that. And it's kind of daunting for someone that's, either at the beginning of their career where they are trying to figure out what they want to do with how art, and then the reality that we always discuss here is how are they going to produce income, how are they going to have a career, how are they going to raise a family, put a roof over their head, right? But at the same time, there's also folks that have done that for a long time and they feel like they're being left behind or obsolete by the technology that's being introduced, and they don't know how to react to it. Whilst at the same time, anyone on the continuum here that's an artist nowadays has somewhat of a necessity to have that external validation from social media platforms or even from companies that they work with. Like if you are a musician, you need to have a certain number of followers or a certain exposure that you already have established to make it big, or for your art to be distributed or displayed somewhere, you might need similar metrics for a gallery to accept you in or something like that. So there's a lot of pressure to comply with a lot of these systems and things that are in place, and I think it really does come back to a lot of these topics that you just were mentioning, such as the stress of the impact on your mental health that occurs when you're dealing with those things, or when you're just trying to create and that's all that you want to do, but there's all this pressure to fit into these systems. And it's a conflict that we have a lot because we currently do make a lot of recommendations for artists to participate in these systems as a mean of survival, navigating the current environment that artists exist in. It's almost a necessity, but I'd like to hear your perspective on, if someone was an artist and they came to you and they said, I'm thinking about stopping, my art at least full time so that I can look for another job and do something else just so that I can survive. And I'm worried about AI and I'm worried about social media. Like, I don't want to make TikTok. I'm not a TikToker. I'm a painter, not a TikToker. Like, if someone like that came to you, what would you say?
Sure. Yeah. Excellent question. Because one thing we think about as life coaches is really learning how to navigate our living in our society. But how do we do it in a way that is right for us, kind and gentle on us, in a way that we can find success? And I think one of the things that I find to be really effective, and I'll talk about some actual tools that you can use in just a minute. But I think what's important is that sometimes that things like change and things that we've got to navigate, although AI is different than what we've seen before, generations and centuries and kind of decades before us all have dealt with similar types of issues and societal problems. How do we fit into those social norms? How do we navigate these social constructs with how we feel inside? Right? Some of these social constructs just simply do not resonate with who we are, but yet it's a world in which we find we must live.
Mm-hmm.
There's a delicate balance in between all of that, right? So it's not, so as a life coach, that's really kind of our job to ask a lot of questions. How are you feeling? What are your viewpoints? Where do you think you might fit in the situation? And is this a place? It's kind of like squaring or filling a round hole with a square peg, right? You know that you need to be a part of this environment, and yet it may not always resonate with you. It may not always necessarily be where you want to be and go where you want to go. So I think there's an element of balance in all of that. And I don't mean an equal balance. I mean, there is an opportunity for you to really have the skills and the tools you need to navigate both, and hopefully they would kind of acquiesce as you go through some of that. And one of the neat, there's something that I always find just beautiful about teaching young people and walking into that classroom or interacting with them out in the hallways. We talk about life events and activities and helping to solve their problems, etc. Is the fact that that your 20s is just it's a dress rehearsal. Right? Your 20s is just kind of a practice. That's always the way I thought about it. When you graduate from school with your college degree, there's a little pocket of time in there that you really will never have again. You have a college degree. The world is opening up to you. Doors might be opening up to you. You developed 4 years of a multitude of skills. You have changed and maturated in a way that is unquantifiable. Now you open up that new door into adulthood, and it can really be an incredibly magical time for you to approach life at this time with those skills and abilities you've been able to develop and the end result of that maturation, but know that it's just the springboard to keep going. So I always suggest students really graduates really embrace their 20s in a way that is really, like I said, a dress rehearsal, an opportunity to grow, an opportunity to develop in a way, because it really sets that stage for the rest of your life. And I think we grossly underestimate our 20s as an opportunity to experiment, learn flexibility, become elastic, because you really are much more plugged in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. Use this young time to be able to leverage your everything you possibly can in a really positive and enlightening way. I don't know if that kind of helps, but I think maybe it's explaining the context where I come from when I talk about some of these ideas. Okay.
I really like that. There's the classic analogy of like the seasons of your life, and when you're in your 20s, that's like the summer of your life. It's exciting. It's bright. It's a party. It's all of those things that you could associate with that. And I feel like that's a good message to embrace as a young person navigating a difficult world, is to just enjoy it. And it's, as someone that's went kind of on the end of this myself, that was something that I'd always heard, and I'm glad that I did it. But it's a tough time too, because everyone's just at different phases of their life. Like some people are starting families, some people are deep in their career, some people aren't doing anything. So it's like, where do I fit into that structure when you just see like so many different people around you doing different things? And I think that's a good, it's whatever you want to make of it. And
Sure.
as long as you're enjoying it, I think that's important. But yeah, so into the next piece of the podcast here, unless you had something else to continue on to that, I know you were really excited to get into this, what you alluded to here, this career reflection guide that you put together. And I know there's a lot in there. We could probably spend time on each one of these points in here. So I saw the first piece here coming right off of that is redefining what success means. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit. I'm going to add to this discussion of our worksheet with a couple of really good pieces, I think. So as you prepare to engage in that worksheet, take a look at it, see what it might mean to you, et cetera. I think it's really, really important for us to remember is that it's kind of our mindset, right? In the approach to this worksheet, which is basically a self-assessment, a career assessment, a professional development assessment. So often go ahead.
I was going to say it's very important to realize too, in this worksheet you have something I think is not common in a lot of freebies you see out there these days, and that's you have exercises and reflection prompts.
You got it. Yeah.
That's super valuable for a level of integration to really get these to not only short concepts and notions and frameworks and first principles that help people integrate, but to accelerate that into actual action and maybe life-changing habits.
Right.
That's, that exercise and prompts and practices, that's how you get there.
But you're right. And I appreciate you noticing that too, Andrew, in that, as a teacher, we want to engage our students as many teaching modalities and learning modalities as we possibly can. So I know that engagement is a really excellent way to change perceptions, learn something new, and be able to then maybe internalize that. So that's really one of my approaches to that worksheet as well. You're right. And in addition, I think what's important for us to remember is that these will change, right? This worksheet is a kind of an assessment of what's going on for me right now. Embrace and know that these changes you yourself are going to change. Your answers will change along the way as well. So it's a tool you can use really kind of from here on out. And we know, of course, right, you're musicians, right? You know the importance of marginal adjustments, practice. I used to tell Andrew with discipline comes freedom. Right? You practice and you practice and you practice and know the techniques of your instrument, develop that craft because you will find freedom really afterwards. And I know that's might be a very kind of a pie in the sky sort of an idea, but it really is true. When you get that mindset piece ready to go, perspectives will change. This job search will change. Whether or not you say yes to that job will change. These changing that mindset can be extremely powerful. So I'm just going to kind of touch a little bit on that as we approach approach kind of the self-assessment in a way that I think is going to be really, really beneficial. So,
sweet.
And again, because maybe your mindset is not in that right place, right? These decisions can be really difficult. And even when you do get that job, you may not feel quite as fulfilled if that mindset isn't quite there. Like Jake said, right? You're juggling lots of different aspects of your life. What do those mindsets in all aspects really look like? So these are just really good kind of self-assessments that you can have every day. So as we think about this, a couple of areas that I really want to focus on. The first one is something I call differentiation, right? Differentiation. So we are quick when faced with a decision. We're very quick to label something as anxiety to the point where it can sometimes kind of become an excuse, right? It's the way that people function, their brains, and use that as a way to, I'm going to label it anxiety, which means I have difficulty really working through it. I'm going to procrastinate. I'm going to put it off. I'm not willing to change. I'm uncomfortable. It makes me afraid, right? But to the point where anxiety or these difficult questions these difficult questions are really imposing to answer because you don't have the skills that you need to be able to have the confidence to be able to answer those questions. So this is what we're looking at. And believe me, I'm very sensitive to people with anxiety, full-fledged, full-blown, paralyzing anxiety, right? It's not that uncommon. And
so you're saying you
really
saw an uptick over the years too, though? Like, do you think that anxiety, these episodes have gotten worse and worse and worse over the years of your teaching?
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And studies show, we know that, we'll stay on anxiety for just a minute. When you have a student that has a class online, they are afraid to have their camera on. Students are afraid to ask questions. They are afraid to offer their opinion. They don't ask people out as much. They are afraid to get their driver's license at 16, right? They are simply afraid. And what are they afraid of? They're afraid of being judged. They're afraid of being judged. So that's what I mean by, and I think you really make a valid point, Jake, in that part of being a musician is getting that feedback about how well your music sounds and what it means to someone else. Right? I think that's extremely important. And I think there's a delicate balance with an artist. How do I resonate with what my soul is telling me? How do I resonate and bring that together with what the rest of the world is telling me I should do, right? And that's what I mean by giving you some tools to really round out that decision making. Does that make sense?
The decisions that we make are the habits that we create in the neurons we fire and wire in our brains. And that is life, right? We're basically these kind of walking habits and neurological firings that we either consciously or less than consciously experience.
100%. You got it. It's exactly right. So my challenge as a life coach then is to think, okay, how can we change the narrative in our mind? And that's really what I'm approaching right now in this discussion, because I think it warrants a really good, it warrants time, it warrants self-reflection, it warrants the opportunity for us to really think about what's going on in our mind. And I'll talk a little bit about some of that rewiring, which I think is what you're getting to in a second. So what are we differentiating? We're differentiating between what is reality and what is the fantasy in my imagination, right? What is the fantasy? What is really reality? Am I fixated on an imagined outcome, right? Is it really my goal? Is it my journey, or is it someone else's goal driven from someplace outside of me? Right? These are questions that we need to kind of think and contemplate. Is it a constant replay of anxiety-ridden speculation, right? I mean, what really is going on out here? So being able to differentiate between that reality and the dialogue in our minds, right, is extremely important. And we have a natural propensity to gravitate toward what is comfortable, right? Change is uncomfortable. But as you said, you were right, Andrew, it really is life. These are what we've been dealt. Now we've just got to be able to deal with it. And that's where I come in as a life coach and being able to help you refine, discover those tools that you have inside you to be able to deal with this. So sometimes too, our anxiousness is really based on fear, right? Our fear and kind of the resulting intolerance of uncertainty. When we're afraid, we just simply don't tolerate that uncertainty. We don't like it. So it might lead to increased focus on potential negative outcomes. It may impair our ability to change in situations, be adaptable. The results of that can often be an avoidance behaviors, right? Or poor decision-making, procrastination. It can really manifest itself in a really variety of ways, right? So as a life coach, my job or duty is to kind of help people work through that. So what do you do, right? What do we do when these are situations where we just simply are unable or find it extremely difficult to make those decisions, move forward, meet our goals, et cetera? So one thing, and this may come across as sounding very, very simple, but Jay Shetty really talks about this deeply. And he talks about always, always, always being your own best friend, right? Being your own best friend. So how do you speak to a friend, right? How do you speak to a friend? What do?
Give respect, give kind words, give encouragement, give support. right?
You got it, 100%. Yeah, right. And your band members, how do you function in a band when, somebody doesn't treat another member well, or somebody in the band is just all in it for the ego and they're not bringing you along as part of that community? That's difficult, right? You should be your own cheerleader, your own support system. That has got to really start inside. Now, doesn't mean that you're never going to question yourself and you're always going to say how wonderful you are. There's an element of accountability. Absolutely, right?
Sure.
Yeah, right. And that's important. And that keeps us moving, going, growing. But it's this constant insatiable appetite for kind of this negative dialogue that really can, over time, beat us down in so many ways. And it manifests ourselves, and it focuses on, or can manifest itself in a variety of ways, right? So how can you become your own best friend? And Jay Shetty in Life Coaching talked about the fact you need to notice, shift, and rewire. Basically, what we're talking about is the hardwiring in our brain that does not allow us to think anything other than these negative thoughts. Well, that indeed is not the case. All it is, as Andrew said, right, it's a habit. It's a habit that we have in our mind, and we play this over and over again, like a record, right? So
nice.
Notice, we shift, and we want to rewire. So studies are showing, Joe Dispenza, if you ever read anything about him or his podcasts, Michael Merzenich, Sharon Begley, these are really excellent authors that talk about something called neuroplasticity and the effects of rewiring your brain. There really isn't hardwiring. There really is soft wiring. We can change that narrative in our brain. And there are rather simple processes that offer positivity rather than that constant harping of negative and downgrading of one's voice. And you're basically changing that habitual voice in your head. So like Andrew said, that anxiety can raise over time. Those negative voices can solidify themselves in our thinking over time, but so can the positivity. So we know that you can change that narrative. We know that we can rewire our brain, and we know that we have control over that. We can make these changes, but it's going to happen over time. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. Another really fantastic author that I think has really changed my life coaching life is Shiraz Shameen. And he is a Stanford University researcher. You may have heard of him, I don't know, but he studies saboteurs in our personality, specifically within a framework of something he calls a positive intelligence theory. And this, I did some training with in a large group with him, and he's absolutely amazing. He's absolutely fantastic, and he is so right on right now with saboteurs in our minds. So we get into a situation where we think, oh, wow, this music I've done is really, really good. Or I've done really, really well in that job interview. And then all of a sudden that saboteur is going to come along and say, no, you weren't that good. I don't know why you think you get this job. You didn't mark off all of the job descriptors, right? You can't do everything that they are going to ask you to do. Right? So you find yourself kind of automatically engaging the saboteur language. And the really cool things that this researcher does is to categorize these different saboteur types in ways that we can identify them, you can put a name to them, and you can combat them. So overall, we have a large judge, everyone has it, but someone may come across as maybe a victim. Maybe someone is hyper achiever. So it's always that perfectionist saboteur. So there's a variety, there are 10 of them actually, and it's a fantastic study. And he just really presents it, I think, in a way that is so usable and applicable to really everyone. He focuses on mental fitness and to really calls to strengthen that sage mind is what you end up doing really in the end. So kind of knowing these things, what can we kind of, what are some strategies that we can kind of come to and develop and use and coping and just for, our peace of mind. So I'll ask you guys I'm going to ask a few questions in a minute, but each of these areas that I'm going to be discussing are prompted with a question to kind of think about. So the very first one is, how can I decide or come to a conclusion with more confidence? Right? How can I decide or come to a conclusion more confidently? So to really, in order to do that, we need an honest self-assessment. I know I've mentioned that several times already. What does it do? It helps us to become aware. It helps us to be able to know and understand that differentiation. When are you hesitating or can't decide? In life coaching, we ask ourselves why up to 5 times. We ask ourselves why up to 5 times. I'm procrastinating. Why am I procrastinating? Right? Because I just simply don't want to do it. Why don't I want to do it? Because I am afraid. What are you afraid of? Right? You keep asking why as many times as you can to really dig deep into what's really holding you back. So when I say we are quick to put something into anxiety, it gives us the go ahead to not decide. Well, what we need to do is think about that individual decision, not that, oh my gosh, I'm anxious, I don't know what to do. Stop and think about that individual decision. Ask yourself 5 times, kind of isolate it, and then write your answers down and then dissect that. Not in a critical way, but just really from 30,000 feet. If you were a friend that came to you and said this, right? Mm-hmm. What would you say if a friend said this to you about why I'm not deciding, things that hang-ups, those kinds of things? Be that friend. Look through that self-assessment through the eyes of a friend. Second thing I'll suggest is really give yourself permission to trust your gut feeling. And I know you guys as musicians, when you improvise, boy, it's that gut feeling that really rises to a level of performance, right? I know what I'm capable of, and I might want to experiment, those kinds of things. So you as a musician might have that ability to follow that gut feeling already, which is fantastic, right? You have the answers inside of you, you know. Really, no one knows you any better than you, right? So you know what works and what doesn't. You know that if you keep circling on and circling and circling with no end in sight, right, it's time to get off the ride, right? You're old enough to make those self-assessments and really engage in those self-adjustments. So one thing that I have my clients ask in this opportunity to develop this mindset when we're in a position to really make these decisions, we've self-assessed, we really want to think about doing this with a quiet mind. And that's very, very difficult in the worlds we live in with so much noise going on in our world. One thing I always suggest, put the phone down, shut it off, put it in another room. You literally have to make a concerted effort to quiet your mind. Go to a place that makes you feel good, free, relaxes you. Just stop for a moment. Maybe it's picking up your instrument and playing just something simple a little bit to get your mind in that place and space that can really be quiet and think clearly. So why do we want to think kind of quiet and clearly, right? This obviously allows us to give attention to some of those differentiating moments. What am I saying in my head? Listen to yourself say it. Stop, rethink, rewire. It allows time to be that best friend. It allows you to hear, tap into your inner voice. So you can make those decisions, right, that resonate with your heart and with your soul. You'll feel better about those decisions that you make. And because you feel it, right, you know you've done the best decision you can at that time with the tools you have available to you. Right? When you think about that, it eliminates things like regret and shame. That's a whole other discussion, right? But when you make those decisions, it might be you found out when you asked why 5 times that if this doesn't work, I'm going to be really embarrassed and ashamed because we're looking for external validation. So you might find that I want a lot of likes. I don't want somebody to not like me, right? So when we sit and ask why, we get a really good kind of a much better indication of why we're not moving forward, what's causing the anxiety, why we're not deciding. But know and understand that we only know what we know, right? When you're making those decisions, you're making them with your best heart and best intention that you possibly can right here, right now. Give yourself credit for that, right? Give yourself credit for making those decisions and taking responsibility for those decisions. as we often think, I think when young people especially, make these decisions, they are afraid of failure. In my mind, and I've thought this for myself even before I got into life coaching, in my mind, failure really is a lesson. So is it really failure? Right? My question is, because we're going to fail. We're going to get cut short. We're not going to do as well as we had hoped. We're not going to be able to meet those goals. And that's okay. We need to be kind and gentle on ourselves as we move forward. But think about, what can those setbacks give me? Share with me. Share some insights into who I am. Maybe there is an area that I had a misstep or I did something wrong. That's where this ability to self-assess can really, really pay off. Reevaluating, we might be able to quantify, we might be able to stop and sit and think, okay, this is what I did, this is what I'm going to do next time. If you don't, and kind of thinking about making a concerted effort to make some of those changes and going forward, you're going to feel so much better. You need some of those successes going forward. Another piece that I think is really kind of underrated and can be very simple, but is really, really impactful in terms of our mental health and our perspective and our mindset, is rest. Rest, plain old rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
We know studies are showing that college freshmen already are arriving to college burned out because they have worked and worked and worked at all kinds of activities in schools and making the grades and jobs and all kinds of things, even at such a young age. And I think, that breaks my heart as a mom, right? That breaks my heart. As a professor, that breaks my heart. They already are coming to college burned out. And when you're in that mode of constantly going and doing, makes that quieting your mind difficult. It also indicates that we live in a society that really doesn't like to rest. We don't even like a headache to slow us down. We take something and we've got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's a really cool Greek word that actually I love. It refers to the cessation of work to gain vitality, renewal, and strength. And it's called anapauses. And this really, so I kind of think of anapause as it's a word that just pops into my mind when I'm thinking, okay, I'm tired today. Maybe I'm not going to decide, or I'm tired today. I'm just really going to rest. And maybe it's just for a little bit of a short nap, whatever it might be. But don't underestimate the need and value of rest and recuperation. There are lots of really good books out there that talk about engagement, for example, and rest, recuperation for both mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, creative, whatever it might be. Stepping away for a little bit and just really resting your mind. And of course, I don't even have to mention too, the prevalence of burnout in the workplace. We all are aware of that. All kinds of studies that's been done. We are notorious in the United States for workplace burnout, right? I've read anywhere from 66 to about 80% of full-time employees feel that they are burned out, right? So it's prevalent.
Yeah.
We don't take our time off. We don't take breaks. And we know that this constant churning through of productivity and not resting takes a huge toll on our mental health.
And physical, right? I mean, in my opinion, I think, a statement might be proven a little more now, but less controversial. If you continue to work yourself into the ground, I think it's inevitable that you will run into higher likelihoods of major diseases and struggles later in life. I mean, it's just a way of the body kind of, I think, getting that rest and compensating. So I think we'll see that more and more. Absolutely. Stop now. If you're on the wrong path, get on a new path, right?
It's so about changing habits. Yeah, you got it, right? Yeah. And maybe for a little bit, and this is kind of where some of those saboteurs come in.
Totally.
Going, moving, producing, kind of running on a little engine, right? Until I started life coaching and delved into this myself, I was that engine. I was constantly moving, going, and thought my success relied upon my productivity. How much I did, how much I produced, what was good. And when I came to a point in my life where I walked away from that career into my new amazing, fantastic life right now, I did have to stop and think about that. Where is my value? Where all of a sudden I don't have that classroom to walk into, right? Where now do I direct my energies and my purpose, and how do I rethink, et cetera? So we'll talk a little bit about that, but it was really that was the catalyst for me. And you're absolutely right, Andrew. Poor mental health and emotional health literally can increase chronic diseases. So yeah, you're absolutely right. So we know we've got enough long-term data to be able to conclude that. And emotional regulation, right? This is the deal. What some days you may feel more anxious than others. It's that emotional regulation, that homeostasis that we seek, that a little more even-keeled kind of thought processes. If you lose one night of sleep, deprivation, it actually can trigger 60% of amplification in your emotional centers in your brain. So it's harder to make those decisions. It's harder to regulate your mood. You're increasing your vulnerability to stress. So I absolutely can't stress enough, when you're going to those job interviews, sitting down to do those applications, whatever it might be, really think about your level of rest. It's important. Another piece that I want to bring up is really kind of, as we think about our world of music and the job market out in the world, and you I think summed it up beautifully, Jake, in that we are in a situation where maybe we have to navigate an electronic world, navigate a world of social media in order for us to be successful. Not at all kind of maybe what you thought about when you were young and thinking about majoring in music or having music be part of your career. We really need to stop, think back, self-assess, and ask ourselves, do we need training in an area that will round out our professional skills? And I think this is really important. This is really kind of where the rubber meets the road. Would all of you who are musicians love to work full-time and as a touring gigs or in a symphony, right? Or some of those very traditional kinds of ways that you would do work. We know that really isn't always a possibility, and it's not for everybody. I get that. I totally understand it. So what can we do if we feel stuck in a job? Maybe it is maybe doing a job that's not in music, right? How can you move forward to upskill in some areas? Maybe it's really important at times in your life when you're thinking about maybe quitting your job. Maybe you do want to change careers, that you don't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to quit my job. Stop for a second, take the time to upskill, give yourself 30 days. 30 days, I want to be out of this job. You give yourself 30 days to take the time to have coffee with your 3 mentors. You do some training. Take another class. There's all kinds of things you can do for free online, for example. But feeling yourself moving forward is going to allow you to not feel so stuck. So when you feel yourself moving forward, gaining new skills that you know you are going to be able to use, or at least just enhance your own personal life, right? It really helps you to kind of get out of that stuck place. So kind of thinking about along with that, things like transferable skills. You guys, musicians, you've got it good. I don't know how well you realize how good you've got it, because studies on the brains of musicians find that your grade matter. I mean, you literally are physically have developed your brains throughout your young lifetimes in very markedly different ways than what people who are not musician based. And there are fascinating studies out there about how you really have a variety of advantages, right?
Does this come to all artists or just musicians?
I'm sorry?
Is this for all artists that you're referring to the body of work?
What I just studied was just musicians.
Okay. I'm sure it's applicable across, but
so I would think, I would think absolutely that it's there are various, I would think they can study it so deeply now. There are probably a few nuances that you could identify from somebody who is an artist who uses paint as their medium, and as opposed to somebody who sings, right? Something like that. But I'm sure singers would go into the musician realm. But as we think about this, let me ask a couple of questions, right, from the two of you. So Share with me, as a musician, what skills, abilities have you been able to develop? Super softball question.
I think a really interesting one that is maybe not at the surface is how to effectively work as a team and in a group. As someone who came up through the public school band system and into band in college and then into band in the professional world, that you really get an understanding of what a team is, in the sense that most people would not want to listen to me play my instrument by itself, like in most contexts. Like, there are saxophone players in the world that play by themselves, like a Kenny G or something, but they're every musician, even if they're a front man, like, they have their band behind them. But in general, I think that sense of camaraderie and that sense of community that's instilled in you as a musician is super critical to going into the world. And as someone who's somewhat departed from where music was more of a full-time use of my time into other career pathways since then, I think that's always been something that I've carried with me.
Same. I mean, very similar. I identify a larger bit with the group aspect, being in that group and having to do all the things together, playing, booking, talking to the customer, like all of that. It's a very unique experience for sure. You become very well-rounded. It's not very isolated, and it's very different each time. And have to do that at a young age too. We're very fortunate that we did that during college, not in, that was a huge learning opportunity for us outside of school, very different than what all my other colleagues were getting at the university,
Got it. Yeah. So absolutely. So those are excellent examples and answers. So as you think about roadblocks that you might run into, how can you think about the skills that you've gained through your work as a musician to really mitigate some of these issues, right? Personally, but also how can they become then transferable skills in the workplace? And I think what's really, really important is that sometimes we are so focused on our majors that we don't really kind of understand what we've been able to develop in some of these other maybe classes that you've taken. Liberal arts institutions especially will really open your heart and your mind. Personal travel, right? Whatever it might be, think about how some of these personal skills and abilities can really be leveraged in a way to round you out as a really much more marketable person. Because one of the things we find, in fact, we're just kind of getting back to this memory idea of musicians, you actually have the ability to have improved memory. You have enhanced auditory and processing skills. Your attention, you have enhanced attention skills. Studies show you have superior language and reading skills as well. You have greater cognitive flexibility and executive functioning, just simply because of the way your minds work and engage with music and the study of that music and developing that craft and learning it. And right now, 96% of companies are using skills-based hiring in some way, shape, or form. It's becoming extremely popular. It's becoming very important. So skill-based development is not just important, it's critical to finding that next job, to really doing something that really fulfills you. Last couple of things that I really want to talk about and just kind of round out our discussion is how you can commit to having a healthy relationship with your mind. I think this is important that we do daily check-ins every day. Do some really good research on your own. Take that time to know that time is well spent for your mental health and well-being. In that, you find a good podcast, you find a good author, you find something that can maybe remind you just subtly every day, right? Somebody that maybe it's a way of kind of helping you keep track of that journey, right? And create that good, healthy, positive mindset. Goes on my last couple of suggestions have to do with Jake's comments about finding community, right? I know, Andrew, you have greatly benefited from being parts of community. And you're right, your livelihood as a musician is based upon that community, that band that you have, right? So find that community, even if it's if you want something kind of music-based, great. Maybe it's a jam session, right? You can share, you can study together and share lessons with people who are like-minded, so you can discuss philosophies and kind of what's going on. You're not alone in this world, right? Communities can really help make you feel that you can, with support of your community, really conquer a lot of social ills that you might find you're uncomfortable with. You can get initial kind of feedback and share best practices, right? It contributes to our physical health, our well-being, our longevity. You can also network, right? You can teach each other. You can really help to kind of develop yourself and one another. I also suggest too volunteering with some sort of musical activity. This is an excellent opportunity to network, keeps musical skills fresh, right? Gives you some satisfaction. And it will help you, I think, in this last suggestion that I have, and that's rethinking purpose and redefining success. You can take self-assessment tools, you can quiet your mind, you can do a variety of things, right, to help you find a job, to help you get in that mindset that you need, right? But I think something about redefining success and purpose is going to be critical for this journey that you're going to be on when it comes to a good mindset, getting your ideas and goals kind of moving forward. What does success look like to you? What does purpose look like to you right now? Think about.
I want to spend a moment just the sensitivity of time. We've only gotten through number 1 of the 10, by the way, really, everyone here. So if we could, Mom, quickly just move through the other 9, because I know we could spend all day on number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you take a look, and I appreciate that, thank you. If you take a look, many of the things I talked about, I really touch upon many of these on the worksheet. So yeah, I wasn't necessarily kind of going down the worksheet and sharing piece by piece. Many of the things that we have, right, are already in here. So thinking about understanding, number 2, thinking about the modern music job market. You guys talk about that all the time, and I think you're really doing your industry a service to be able to discuss that. Building your career like an entrepreneur. That might be one of the pieces that you find in your self-reflection. That you might have a great deal of comfort doing something like that, but you really need to talk and think about, as an entrepreneur, what does that career portfolio look like? Go out and do a lot of those things that Jake mentioned with regard to social media, and do it in a way that you have a really, really good mindset. And learn and reflect and grow as you are an entrepreneur. There's risk involved. Are you comfortable with risk, right?
To your point, you kind of have to be an entrepreneur, right? That's how within this brand of AI now, I mean, this is a shift that I think is unlike anything we've ever probably had it, and the way it's going to accelerate is going to be quite alarming and dramatic.
Right.
We all, especially as those who maybe have a 9-to-5 and are an artist on the side, or the vice versa, have a 9-to-5 art thing, but they're not really truly creating except on their 5 to 9. That level of shift for an artist when it comes to how to frame what they're doing and how to build it as an entrepreneur, just having that mindset doesn't mean necessarily have to go out and be a crazy entrepreneur. I mean, maybe it's a good thing for you, but to have the mindset to not necessarily rely on anyone else for your own sense of get back to things you talked about earlier, maybe purpose or accomplishment. Now you have to maybe go do some of your own training. That's what requires the mindset shift, and then from that, you can build into something a greater, new habits, new wiring, because it's no longer just about someone else kind of doing it for me anymore. That playbook's gone.
100%, Andrew. And I had an experience in my life too, and this is where the self-assessment really comes into play. And I'm really kind of harping on and suggesting, because you need to be an observer of your own life as well. And many years ago, I was in a job that I got paid by the hour, and I thought, and I deserved a raise. I thought nobody's going to go to bat for me but me. Nobody's going to stand up for me but me. sure enough, I had a little spiel. I went in and I thought, worst we could do is my boss say no. And I'll be darned if I didn't get a raise, but I had to do it myself. And I've always thought about that. This is when, like your 20s, I was in my 20s and it was like my dress rehearsal, because that experience that I was able to observe, self-reflect upon, was really the springboard for gaining confidence into lots of other things. And I knew you kind of are on your own a little bit, which is true. That's why I suggest getting this community for that support. But there are elements of this, especially that entrepreneurial kind of endeavor or feeling, that I think is a really important, but people are going to navigate that entrepreneurial piece in a variety of ways. Number 4, we talk about leveraging transferable skills. I mentioned that. Networking as relationship building. We all know how to do that. And it's just another area too, that might be, I really want this job. Why am I not getting it? Why am I uncomfortable speaking to people? Why can I not network? Answers to those questions can help in that self-assessment. Mindset and resilience is another one. Number 6, number 7, balance artistry and practical strategy. This, I would think, would be the most difficult piece to navigate. Right. I think for Andrew, my observations for you, it's been very difficult as well for you to
a lot of iterations.
Jake, put food on the table, right? And still engage in that artistry. And that's where that rethinking of purpose and success come in. Am I limiting myself by saying I can only be a successful musician if I get that gig job that's full-time and I tour with, Justin Bieber, right? How can we rethink that and know that music that comes from inside you, because musicians are gifted in ways that many other people are not. You've tapped into your job here on earth, which is to engage in music and share that music, right? And to make our world better. That has nothing to do with sometimes with a paycheck, right?
Yeah.
So what we mean by really rethinking that purpose, that kind of the balance of the practicality with your artistry. Building an authentic personal brand, right? That's number 8, along with an entrepreneurial piece. Number 9, using technology to create opportunity. And we've talked a little bit about that. And you guys address this stuff all the time. And then, of course, number 10, invest in personal growth and support systems. So I kind of think that my discussion that I had today really touched upon all of those. But you kind of, just a couple of kind of concluding thoughts. As a musician, right, you started out learning, growing, developing, you would scaffold, you would connect, you would develop your craft. And it took years, right, to really get to where you are right now. And career and personal development is the exact same thing. So, as we think about making changes, doing it with marginal adjustments, ever so slowly, you'll see some market changes in your world. I guarantee it. So that's it.
Wow.
Right. And you'll start making decisions based on freedom, not on fear. Right.
Yeah, I think this guide is a really important tool to rethink, starting with the number 1 thing on the list, defining success. To sum up a lot of what was said in the podcast today, I think success really can mean something to each person, but I think it's important to make sure that success is defined by that internal validation and that self-talk that you're giving yourself, and not from an external source. And it's okay to have external validation, but I think that primary source of validation needs to come from you, and that in defining your own success. But I think sometimes a lot of individuals, define their success based on what they hear from a community. And, like I mentioned earlier, a community can be a really powerful thing and a transformational thing, but it also can be to detriment of yourself if you're in the wrong space. And that, I think, the source of a lot of our negative thoughts do come from things that are outside of our head, and they're coming into our head. And kind of reframing who is giving you guidance, because I think, none of us are born knowing the way. We're shaped and molded by what's come before us, who we surround ourselves by. But I think a really powerful tool for that is finding coaches, finding mentors, finding friends that can help you to develop yourself and go where you want to go. That's what we're trying to do here with Art Arbor. We've from day one referred to ourselves as the Art Arbor community. How I try to interact in all of our content here. I'm going to be starting all of our podcasts with, "Hey, Art Arbor community," because you might be listening or watching this conversation, but know that you're part of our community and we're here for you. And I'd really like to emphasize, as part of this series that we're doing on what we're calling the modern artist optimization, and we have this index that helps you to, as a starting point, to score it, to take that initiative and reach out to someone. It doesn't have to be us, but reach out to someone that is like-minded and has the same goals as you, and that can help you define success. And if we can be those individuals specifically to talk about, I would say, a broad list of things that are in our modern artist optimization, or specifically in this, as you identify, maybe I need to work on my personal development, that you could reach out to Jill here and get some life coaching. There's a lot of opportunity in your community if you go, as an artist, find yourself in a physical space with people doing the same thing as you, and utilize some of these tools in the guide here, like networking. Just take that initiative to go introduce yourself to someone, ask them their story, ask them what they're working on. A lot of the questions that we ask here on the pod are things that you could go implement in the world to help you build your community and to build, as we always say, the arbor, build your art arbor in your life. So I think, if you implement a lot of these things and remember that you're not alone, that there's really a big power in that external validation of a positive reinforcing community, finding a mentor, finding a friend, finding someone that can help you along your way if you're feeling that you're anxious, or you're not successful, or that you're not liking your job, or that you're not spending time on what you like to spend on. I think there's that power of going out, but then of course, as was discussed at length here, that power of coming in, getting that rest, getting that reflection, that meditation, and really understanding what success means to you.
Yeah. I want to double click on going fast or going slow, and what some of us think going fast is. And I catch myself thinking that just because I'm basically moving atoms, or my physical self, or my fingers, that I'm moving extra quickly. But as we zoom out, it's more about what actions you're taking and how you're taking them than necessarily how fast you're, say, doing them. It's a key to have those moments of reflection and to stay silent and to move forward confidently, because I know we all struggle with, in today's world, it feels like there's so many agitations around us, and navigating that can be extra difficult. But we have, tools like AI to help us with navigation. And I encourage all of us to embrace those tools and use them, with an open heart and a community mindset, because a lot of people are using it for the quite opposite reason. That's like the functional, faster, more. And that's just like burning the candles at both ends. Mm-hmm. Nice.
Well, I think this has been a really great conversation, and a lot of good takeaways here. I hope everyone can get some self-reflection and even some conversation started with us. With the Art Arbor team, reach out to us in the DMs. Our email is info@artarbor.community. We'd love to hear your story. We'd love to share what we have with you, or connect you with others. Like I said, I think that there's a lot of benefit in having a life coach. If you're at any phase of your career, we'll have all the links and all the info below to get in touch with Jill as well. I just wanted to thank you again for your time. Did you have any closing thoughts for us?
I think my only closing thought is just please keep, sharing your skills, abilities, and talents with the rest of the world. I think there's so much value in what you do, what your community does, and I think support of you and all that you do is critical to our own well-being and our own really good mindset as those of us who listen and observe you at your best in what you do as musicians. So thank you for sharing your gifts.
Thanks.
Perfect.
That concludes episode 16 of Rooted, the Art Arbor podcast. We will see you next time for more on our exciting journey of the Modern Artist Optimization Index. I'm joined
Thanks, everyone.
Again today by my co-hosts Andrew Arden Witter and Jill Payne. Thank you.